Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the zoo. The minion with me this evening is Adam.
Hello.
And of course, I'm the keeper for this evening, as it is a Friday. Sanguine, how are you doing tonight, Adam?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself there, Sanguine?
I'm doing fairly well, though my throat is a little bit raw. For some reason, the past couple days, I've had a dry, sore throat with an unproductive cough. But
Ooh.
I still have a slight runny nose, so part of me is going, okay, is it that I have a post-nasal thing and it's just stuck up too high to be a productive? Is it something else? So I'm trying to figure that out.
Ah.
But it is leaving my throat a little bit tender, though I'm not sure if it's changed my voice at all due to that. So I might still sound completely normal.
Oh, you sound fine to me.
Okay, so
But
no gravel
hopefully,
in the voice tonight?
no. There's no gravel. Hopefully it's nothing serious. Um,
Yep.
kind. I guess it would be unrelated, but um, the other day, I was yawning a lot because I was pretty tired. And it
Mm-hmm.
just reminded me of a joke that an old coworker had told me that every time you yawn, that's a ghost giving you his what for, and and, and so you don't want to, when you see somebody yawning really wide, it's like, whoa, hey, what are you sucking down there?
See, the thing
um,
is that that must mean that ghosts are extremely premature because I've never had a long yawn. It's always just a couple seconds at most.
Well, I mean, they could also be just doing it because, hey, check it out, check it out, check it out, check it out. Look at this guy. Wah.
Mm-hmm.
um, but we also know that it's possible because we've all seen Ghostbusters, and Ray Stans has has experienced this type of phenomenon. The opposite way, but so
Yep.
yes, that's how we open it. I wish I had done it for a bit. I'd done that bit for Halloween, but completely forgot about it till the other day when I was like, "God, dude, stop yawning."
Nice. But yeah, I had a
Do you want to
decent day
get?
otherwise.
Oh,
And then
hey,
also just go into the food portion real quick
yeah, I was gonna
because
say,
that.
what did you cook up for dinner?
So for tonight's dinner, I have a absolutely beautiful ribeye steak that I'm going to be throwing in a screaming hot cast iron pan here in a little bit. And then I have a bit of rice that last night I made a beautiful picnic shoulder pulled pork. And as I was making that, I threw in a few heads of garlic and a bit of onion. So I took the roasted garlic after roasting that pork shoulder all day long until it was just unbelievably juicy, falling off. I just was able to grab the bone, pull it straight out. It immediately starts threading beautifully. So I have that to look forward to, and I'll be able to eat that for several nights' dinners. But I have the steak tonight. But from that pulled pork, I harvested the roasted garlic. So I threw some of the roasted garlic in with my rice for the night. And then I'm going to have some sauteed mushrooms, sauteed. I might do sauteed onions with the sauteed mushrooms. Splash in a little bit of whiskey. Serve up that steak with the saute and the rice, a finger of whiskey, and I'm trying to decide which beer I want to have with it tonight. So I have a Guinness Extra Stout, I have Guinness Draft, I have Harp Lager, and I have a handful of others scattered around, I believe. I still have a fruited IPA from TUES, which is fairly nice, as well as I need to double check. I think it's been about 6 months or more since I bought the Dragon's Milk special So I need to see how long it's been so I can determine, should I crack one open and give it a taste today, or is it still a bit immature? Because that's one of the lovely beers that you can sell. So, need to check on that. But otherwise, I just need to figure out which of the beers I want to have for dinner, so I can figure out which type of glass I want to chill, and then have that plated up with the steak, roasted garlic, rice, and the saute. Should be absolutely delicious. And since I was preparing the steak for tonight's dinner, I also started the dry brining of the 2 other steaks that I'll be having this week, which should be glorious. And later on tonight, I'll be butchering up some smoked turkey that I have, as well as portioning out the pulled pork. Because some of that's going to be consumed this week, some of that's going to be thrown into the freezer to just be pulled out at my convenience.
Jeez. Do you normally plan out your meals like long distance type of stuff, or?
I don't really plan it out long term. What I do is, when I'm making something like the pulled pork, I decide that I'll have a certain number of portions for the week. Now, what I'm going to do with each of those portions, I haven't decided. But for the pulled pork this week, let's see, I have 3 steaks. I'm going to do 2 nights of the smoked turkey. So I'll do 2 nights of the pulled pork. I already did 1, so I have 1 more night of the pulled pork that I'm going to do this week. So the rest of it is going to go into the freezer. And I did it in a general enough way that I can pull out that pulled pork and flavor it up however I want for that individual night. And I just leave that up to that night's dinner, how I decide to go for it. Then for the smoked turkey, it's a similar thing. I wanted to get the smoked turkey. It looks beautiful. So I'm going to be sectioning up the smoked turkey, putting 2 portions of it in my refrigerator for me to have this week, and then the rest of the portions are going into the freezer to have throughout the week. The steak, it was 3-pound pack of absolutely beautiful ribeye, so that's 3 dinners. Again, how I'm going to do each individual steak, what the sides are going to be, that's completely undetermined. It's just the meats that I know I'm going to have.
Nice.
And then, yeah, everything else is just, I decided the day that I'm going to have it. So I might decide that, hey, you know what? For the first round of smoked turkey, let me get out the tteokbokki and I'll make that absolutely lovely tteokbokki dish that I made before, and doctor up the sauce a little bit different, play with it a little bit more, and do some smoked turkey on a beautiful bowl of tteokbokki. Or I might decide, I'll do the smoked goose with a more southern or Tex-Mex style, and I'd flavor it up that way. Or I might decide, I'll have it with mashed potatoes, and I'll make mashed potatoes that day and flavor it up accordingly. So every dinner is pretty much decided on that night rather than planned out ahead.
Yeah, but using the same kind of core ingredient, right?
Well, it's pretty much what I have is I know the meats that I'm going to have, but then everything else is on the fly. So
Yeah.
I could decide to have it with rice. I could decide to have it with red bulgur. I could decide to have it with teff. I could decide to have it with mashed potatoes, with baked potatoes, with Hasselback, with a score of other side dishes, because I have the ingredients to make those side dishes, and I could make those at any point. I could decide to do a pasta with pesto. because I have all of that just to hand. But that determination is made on the day when I'm going, you know what I really want? I want mashed potatoes with chives. So then I whip together mashed potatoes and I throw in the chives. And that's how my meal plan is done. I know the protein.
Wait, that's
I don't
all it
know
is
anything else.
mashed potatoes and chives?
Well, if I'm craving mashed potatoes and chives, then it would be potatoes, heavy cream, butter, salt, chives, and that would be a side dish. Like I said, though, I can just decide on the side dish on the day because I have three different. Actually, I have more than three. I have 6 different types of rice, I think. I have a bunch of other grains from red bulgur to barley to millet. I have a bunch of different pastas, couscous, spaghetti, elbow, penne. I think I have some orzo kicking around, which is also a pasta. I have 7 types of rice. I forgot about the rice that you use for risotto, which is its own type of rice. Then I have a bunch of other random grains as well. Like I said, I have barley, oats. I have red bulgur, millet, all that good stuff. I have a shit ton of different noodles that aren't standard pasta noodles, but more Asiatic. So I have somen, udon, a number of others. So, yeah, everything is effectively just, I know the meat that I'll have that day, but I don't know what side I'll have with it until I decide what side. And the meat I just know because when I go to the grocery store, I pick out the best looking meat of the day, and I go grocery shopping once a week. So that decides my week's meat.
Have you been noticing any price change in the
Oh, everything's going up.
going up?
Everything's going up, and it is consistently going up. The most extreme is still the one that I mentioned ages ago, where it was at just one of my standard grocery stores. Scallops, standard, beautiful scallops, were $52 a pound.
$52 a pound?
$52 a pound.
For scallops?
Yep.
Holy shit.
And a bunch of other things have skyrocketed. That was the most egregious example because before this current administration, the scallops that I was able to buy, same type of scallop at the same store, was like 14 to 18 bucks a pound.
Dude,
So
that's quite a price hike.
yep. But that's to be expected when you have the economy shutdown that we had, then you have the inflation, then you have everything else, because that's the thing. People are going, well, the inflation rate doesn't account for all of the price increase. It accounts for a large part, but you're right, it doesn't account for all of it. What also accounts for it is when they had to shut down and continue paying, they have to recoup those losses. And when they didn't have the production for that period of time, it means that now they're dealing with a want of everything, so they have to cycle back up, which costs more money, and they have to ration what they have because they don't have enough in order to produce as much as they were producing pre-pandemic. So that means that supply and demand, as supply goes down and demand remains constant or goes up, the cost goes up. So that's happening with that. And then just everything else is absolutely ridiculous. And the thing that pisses me off the most, I think I mentioned this on last week, but I'm not 100% sure. I might have just mentioned this in one of the side chats or in a back room someplace. But the thing that pisses me off the most is how carefully couched their statements on the record-breaking annual profit increase
Oh
of
yeah.
companies. Because do you know the main bit of sleight of hand being done with that statement?
No.
So they're doing annual profit increase. What was happening economically in 2020 versus 2021?
Mm, uh, what was happening that was different?
A bunch of businesses were told that they aren't allowed to be businesses. Right?
Wait,
So
hold on. That was going on between what specific dates? Or
between
between roughly what time?
about 2020 and 2021.
Oh, was there
And
something else that was going on around that time? Or
yep, there was. But the thing is that they had the businesses were told that they aren't allowed to function. So, of course, when you aren't allowed to function, your profits tank. Because if you aren't allowed to make shit and you aren't allowed to sell the shit that you make, it means that your profit is rapidly approaching, if not zero. And if you're still paying everyone that you had employed beforehand, your profits now become negative because you aren't allowed to function as a business and you're just paying your employees,
oof.
which is a really nasty place to be in economically. So when
Yeah.
you then do the year-to-year profit increase between a year when your profit is rapidly approaching zero, or worse yet, negative, and a year where you're allowed to function as a business, well, yeah, you have an infinite increase in your profit. Because if you went from zero to something not zero, that's an infinite increase. Because there's no number that you can multiply by zero to get something that isn't zero.
I mean, it
Whereas
makes
what
sense.
they've managed to go from zero profit to profit. So looking at the annual profit increase and then going, well, they had a record-breaking annual profit increase. No shit. Their profits from last year were fucking zero. When you go from zero to profit, it's a record-breaking profit increase. Fuck you for trying to blame people that are actually functioning now and they haven't returned to pre-pandemic levels. They're still producing less now than they produced before, and their profits are less now than they were before. But because their profit increased from zero to something not zero, oh, clearly they're just fucking over everyone and stealing money from people. No, they aren't. That's just how math works.
Oh, but is it Common Core math or is it the other kind of math or is it what
It's
math are you talking about?
actual math, new math, and I'm pretty sure even in Common Core, it'll take a fuck ton longer, but I'm pretty sure at some point you'd be able to get the
Yeah, but okay,
right
they're
answer.
still tallying the numbers, so it's gonna take a while.
Yeah, it just pisses me off that they're pulling that shit of, well, the record-breaking profit increase. Yeah, no shit. No, duh, there's a profit increase when they're generating profits now. They weren't before. It'd be like looking at a homeless person versus looking at that same homeless person working minimum wage and going, well, they just had a record breaking increase in their earnings. Well, yeah, they went from zero to something. Doesn't matter what that something is, it's going to be record breaking.
And I wonder what could have triggered that change.
Yep. Could it be an overreaction to something? Perhaps. But I can't go too deep into that else. will get bopped for the third time.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I didn't want to talk about it. I was goofing out with Terry. I think it was my fault.
Mhm.
I'm
Oh,
pretty sure
and
one of them was my fault.
did you hear about the newest breaking news out of social media and the government?
No. No,
So,
today I was pretty much out of the dark. So I'm not too sure what happened.
so you know that thing that everyone knows that the government has been doing when it comes to social media, but the government said that they weren't doing, and then they tried to make an entirely new government body in order to do the thing that they said that they weren't doing and that they would never do, and then people got pissed off that they were going to do that, so they decided that they would close down that government body. Yeah, turns out they've been doing it, just like everyone thought they were doing it.
Oh.
Yeah, they're still doing the disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation shit. Which, do you know the distinction that they put on between all of those?
Did they change the logo?
They didn't change the logo. They just aren't coming forward with it as obviously. They are no longer having the disinformation agency. They're just having DHS and uh, NIS do it. So they're still contacting social media companies. They're still saying, you will ban this shit. You will do this shit. You will do this shit now. There turned out to be a back page for, I think it was both Facebook and Twitter, but it might have just been Facebook, where you could, if you had a government issued email account, you could submit the link to something that you wanted banned directly, only to those with a government or law enforcement account. That just came forward just this week, I think. And yeah, all that shit that we knew that they were already doing, yeah, turns out that they're already doing. And that they're still doing, and that they're ramping up to ridiculous degrees. Hello, Sora, how goes?
Is anybody surprised though?
No one should be, because this is a somewhat old story, even though it's brand new, because we already heard about this when it came to the Jack Dorsey interview from Joe Rogan. We heard about it again when it came to the Mark Zuckerberg interview. We heard about it again when it came to, what was the third one that he interviewed that also said, yeah, we got word from the FBI that this was going to be a disinformation campaign. Oh, and by the way, I asked, do you know the difference that they put on dis, and malinformation?
I think I saw a meme on that, but
So misinformation is when you're saying something that's wrong, unknowingly. Disinformation is when you're saying something that is wrong knowingly. And malinformation is when you're saying something that's right, but you're not couching it in a way where it doesn't sound bad. So technically, by this governing body, I'm currently engaging in malinformation because I am saying something that is accurate, but they don't like how I'm saying it, because I'm not saying, isn't it amazing that they're doing this? This is fantastic. This is what we want them to do. No, I'm saying, fuck them. Because it's horseshit. So that would be categorized under malinformation, because it is correct information, but it is correct information that is not shining their knob. So yeah, that just pisses me off. That it's coming out again, and people are acting like, oh my god, who could have ever guessed? Fucking everyone knew. And there are people saying, this is a good thing. No, the fuck it isn't. What are you on that you think that it's a good thing, or the government's deciding what you can and can't say?
You know, I was talking to whoa, still there? Okay.
I
I was talking to a few
strictly
people
muted because
about
I was blowing my nose.
oh, um,
And now I have
about
a nosebleed. Muting up real quick again.
the going-ons in Illinois, and you know they're looking forward to voting because of all the bullshit that's going on, and it's not. It's I don't think it's lost on them. You know, just how shit has gone down in this state. Um, I was goofing with somebody earlier today about, hey, let me come with you to Florida. Let me move with you to Florida. And he was like, yeah, no, I got a spot. You let me know. And I'm like, but at the same end, you know, I was born in Illinois. I have some love for the state, you know, and back in the day, that's what it was. We were statesmen, you know. We enjoyed where we came from. We had pride from it, and we lost that battle. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's a shame that we have so many politicians and so few statesmen now.
Yeah.
And the thing is that it is infuriating all the shit that's happening, but there is a bit of a silver lining, and that's it's looking like they're going to get an absolute fucking kicking this election cycle. Because it looks like in New York, Zeldin is starting to pull ahead. In Pennsylvania, Fetterman is now falling behind.
Oof. Well, did you see Fetterman's commercial where he's like Big Joe or Red Joe or whatever his name is, the
No,
football player?
I didn't get a chance to see that. Care to explain it as I deal with the fact that my nose is currently just absolutely pouring blood like a faucet?
Is it? Holy shit, dude! What
Yeah,
did you do?
I blew my nose, and then my nose decided, hey, I'm going to start just pouring blood.
Well, that's not normal. You all right?
I will be. Just need to get it to stop.
All right. Well, let me try and I'll fill the gap here.
Yep, you talk
Um,
while I deal with this.
so, well, it's Friday night, and I'd like to thank everybody for joining the show. And I guess we can use this time for an advertisement. Do we have advertisement?
Normally
Do
not.
we have?
No one decided to fund our show.
No. Well, okay. My pillow said, please stop saying our name on your program. And this one says, cherries, berries. If you persist in doing this bit, it would cost you. Okay, so the advertisement for this evening is not available. We'll
Really
have
what you
to.
do is you do the one pillow company that Hog tried to start that died on its
I'm gonna do
infancy.
uh my only pillow. Yeah. Well, okay. We'll work it out. It'll be a different kind of company.
But yeah.
Oh shit. Here we go.
And if your nose is pouring pus, that's not a good thing, Cynic. You should probably get that
No,
seen to.
not at all. I'm trying to find the fucking. Where's my fucking tablet? Okay. Um.
And according to Cannibalistic Wizard, there's a Italian scientist who figured out how to add 30 days to the shelf life of fresh pasta. Of course, it would be in Italian. And sadly, I do not have any silver nitrate sticks in order to deal with my epistaxis.
Would you shove it up your nose or something?
Well, that's what I'm currently doing with a wad of tissue.
Ah.
Just shove it right on up there, and it's gotten most of it, but there's still a little bit that's leaking back into my head.
Oh my goodness.
It happens.
The levees are leaking. You know what that means, right?
Yep. You need to get a Dutch boy in his finger.
Oh, I was gonna say Kanye was gonna say George Bush hates black people.
That works as well.
I mean, it kind of coincides with what he's doing now. So,
Oh yeah, he is getting into a lot of shit right now. And yes, fresh pasta is absolutely yummier than nose blood.
oh shit! You know what? So,
And
what do
yes,
you
that
think?
is the worst part, Sora.
Sanguine,
Yep.
you're kind of a bit of a cook, right?
Yep, and this is going to get me sounding extremely nasal because I'm plugging the other nostril right now.
Ooh, there you go. Sound effects.
Okay. So
Um,
hopefully this doesn't make my voice sound too bad. It will make certain letters sound a bit hummy due to the fact that both nostrils are now obstructed.
well, filtered. That's the technical term.
Ah,
You are filtered.
yeah. Currently,
Um,
I should be able to sound normal with most words. It's just a couple of them that will sound a bit off.
so I got two questions. Have you cooked squash, and have you also cooked spaghetti squash?
Which type of squash? And yes.
I don't know. What's a good dish with squash that you would present?
Oh, I do acorn squash as a side dish quite often. I'll get
Acorn squash?
acorn squash. It looks like a gigantic green and orange acorn. And what I do is I'll get an acorn squash and then I'll slice it in half, scoop out its innards, add in some butter, add in a bit of salt, slap it in the oven, let it roast up in there nice and slow until the edge of the acorn squash starts to color, and the rest of it is just this nice, creamy, soft consistency. And it is
How does it
fantastic.
taste?
Oh, it tastes very good. It's slightly nutty in its flavor.
Uh, what is it? What is the texture though? Is it like
Like mashed
soft and like
potatoes.
smushy? Oh, it's mashed potatoes. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's mashed potatoes texture with this kind of slightly nutty flavor. It's like a buttery, nutty sort of taste to it. It's really lovely.
Oh, I wouldn't mind trying it.
And spaghetti squash is rather nice if you're trying to cut out carbs. You can roast a spaghetti squash, then you fork the innards of the squash into effectively spaghetti noodles. Kind of like think how you pull pulled pork.
Yeah.
Only
No,
when
yeah.
you do that with spaghetti squash, it becomes these long strands, kind of like spaghetti noodles. And it is rather lovely.
I've had spaghetti squash before, and it wasn't too bad. Pretty sure it wasn't prepared right, but
Was it too watery?
uh, dude, it was so long ago I can't remember. I just remember it was one of those things where it's like, oh, spaghetti squash. Yeah, that's not too bad. Yeah, it's pretty
Yep.
good. But yeah, no, yeah, the uh topic of these two gourds, right?
Yep, they're both
Am I
gourds.
reading this right? Gourds. Okay. These gourds.
Not to be confused with gorals. Those are just
Oh,
morbidly obese
yes.
fat bitches online.
Whoa. Hey, we don't want
I'm not wrong.
to. But we don't want to. Come on, we don't want to distinguish anybody from our audience. You know, everybody should be watching us. Yeah, especially the gourds. Or the gorgons.
Gorgons are entirely different. There's two immortal gorgons and there's one quasi-mortal gorgon. And then there's two different origin myths for the quasi-mortal gorgon. The one that I prefer has her being somewhat cursed, but more an attempt of safeguarding her
Hold on.
by turning
What
her
about
into
this
a gorgon able
Quasimodo
to.
gorgon?
The quasi-mortal gorgon is Medusa. So the origin of Medusa is that she is the sister of the other gorgons, as well as several other monstrous sisters, including Scalia and
Was it 3 or 4 sisters? I thought it was
there's
3.
three Gorgons. So the two other Gorgons, who are the immortal Gorgons, and then Medusa was the third Gorgon, who was originally not. She didn't look like a Gorgon.
No. Well,
So
no. Well, initially, none of them.
no, initially two of them did. The immortal Gorgons always were absolutely hideous. All her other sisters were absolutely hideous as well. Because, like I said, Medusa was born to the same family
And that's
as.
how Neptune got her. Or
So
Poseidon.
she was born to two other aquatic deities. And all of those aquatic deities, daughters, except for Medusa, were absolutely hideous. Because it was Phorcys and Keto that were or rather Phorcys and Keto were the two parents. And Phorcys and Keto gave birth to the Gorgons. Or rather, so they gave birth to Gorgo, which was one of the Gorgons. Then they gave birth to Gorgo's sister, who is also a Gorgon. Then they gave birth to Medusa. They also gave birth to. I'm trying to remember all their children because they had quite a few monstrous children. And it was.
I like the
Children.
one where they had 100 arms and all that.
Oh, that's the Hecatoncheires. Those are the
Yeah.
children of Gaia, but it was Phorcys and Keto gave birth to Echidna, the Gorgons, the Grei, Landon, the Hesperides, and Thusa. All of these hideous monsters. The one exception to the hideous monsters was Medusa. And there's some versions of the different names of the other two Gorgons. Like I said, one of them has it as Gorgo. But another variation is Syntheno and Euryale? I think it's Euryale. And then Medusa. Medusa was absolutely gorgeous. And when it came to her early life, she grew up, was doing rather well. She devoted herself to Athena. And everything was going grand until Poseidon saw Medusa and wanted her. And he didn't much care whether she wanted him as well. He wanted her. So he took her. And he took her in the Temple of Athena. The one thing that becomes very obvious reading Greek mythology is one of the worst things that you can do is fuck someone on one of the virginal goddesses' temples. So there's two versions of the myth. There's the one that I prefer, and then there's the one that I don't like as much. So the one that I don't like as much is after seeing this happen, and after Medusa, for some reason, after being abused by the god of the sea, took to bragging about her beauty being so great that even the god of the sea decided that he had to have her, which the only god that could compete with how much Zeus fucked anything that moved was Poseidon. Considering Poseidon fucked his own grandmother several times over. Because Poseidon had several children with Gaia. Zeus had, I think, one child with Gaia. Maybe two children with Gaia. But
look, it was a different time, okay?
Poseidon was constantly bashing in his grandmother. So, you have Medusa then bragging about her beauty, bragging about how she was so desired by the god of the sea that he decided to take her in Athena's own temple. And that she must be even more beautiful than Athena. So Athena cursed her. That's one version. That's the version that I don't like as much because it doesn't seem as believable. The other version is that it starts the same. She becomes a temple maiden of Athena. She serves loyally. Poseidon sees her, decides that he wants a piece of that, and takes her. Not once, not twice, not thrice, but routinely and violently.
4 times a lady.
So he routinely and violently takes Medusa. And when he does so, it of course causes Medusa to start having problems. She goes into effectively a suicidal depression. She starts cursing her looks and decides that she's going to off herself. But before she does, she prays one last time to Athena, asking for her torment to end. After praying to Athena, she tosses herself off a cliff. Athena heard her prayer, and before Medusa hits the ground, she transforms Medusa to look like her immortal sisters. So she has snakes for hair. She has these large tusks. She gets a serpentine lower body, as well as large, unsightly wings that end up saving her from her fall. But Athena didn't stop there. Athena went a step further and made it so that anyone, no matter Olympian or mortal, that looked directly upon Medusa would be turned to stone. This liberated her of the predation of Poseidon. She goes off, lives with her other two sisters. Eventually, you have Perseus, who is sent after her to kill her, and part of it is that even after being saved from the predation, she was still extremely angry, extremely destructive. So Athena kind of went, well, she needs to be put down, and helped Perseus in dealing with her. And then she gave birth to her two sons when her head was struck from her neck, which was. Do you happen to remember her two sons before I say their names? Adam?
No.
So
What were the names of her two sons?
One of them goes on and serves in a score of different myths and legends. And that one is Pegasus. The winged horse is actually the progeny of Medusa and Poseidon, after Poseidon's abuses of Medusa. The other one sounds like he originally had quite a few myths about him, but most of those have been lost to time. So we're effectively only left with his name. And that's Creosaur. Or sorry, Creaora. Yeah, it's Creaora. Creosaura? Something like that. The name translates to the hero of the golden sword, which sounds impressive. Sounds like there has to be a hell of a lot of myths about this. But yeah, it turns out that pretty much everything about him was lost, other than he married Calliope, the daughter of Oceanus, and he ended up siring Garon, if I remember correctly. And Garon was the triple-headed giant that Hercules ends up killing. So it sounds like he should have had a lot more myths, but a lot of that shit got lost to time, and nothing really came of it. Oh, he was also the father of... Wait, no. This is one of the weird things, because if I remember correctly, there's some versions where he's the father of Echidna, but Echidna was already the daughter of Phorcys and Keto. And that's one of the weird ones where there's a couple different origins of Echidna. And I'm trying to remember, because there was one other that is normally ascribed as a daughter of Phorcys and Keto, which was the monstrous female that Typhon ends up wedding with, and she becomes the mother of monsters. And
isn't Typhon the one that fought Zeus and beat him for a bit?
Yeah, he was the one that almost toppled Zeus. He was the third great challenge of the Olympians. So you have the Titanomachy, which is the first great challenge of the Olympians. Then after the Titanomachy, you have the Gigantomachy. And the Gigantomachy, again, almost topples the Olympians. Then after that, you have Typhon, which was the third great challenge. And then the only other thing that almost toppled Zeus was the rebellion in Olympus. Which, do you know the rebellion of Olympus at all?
It sounds familiar, but I mean, the only thing, because I just recently, I just recently was, I saw a video about the typhus, not typhus, or the, but yeah, I should try to find it.
Sora, it isn't that Medusa had Kerberos as her son, because Kerberos has a different origin. It was she gave birth to why am I blanking on his name again? The hero of the Golden Sword. I'll just use the English translation. And it was the hero of the Golden Sword that then sired. It was Kriya. No, not Sora, because it only has one S. It was Kriya Order. And he was the one who ended up being the sire of Geryon. And Geryon was... Oh, Echidna. Yeah, Echidna was the mother of most of the monsters within Greek mythology, because she was the mother of monsters. And she was the one who bedded Typhon.
Oof. Okay. So Solon, do you think we've had enough of a history lesson?
That's a dangerous question to ask me. I'm always scared for more.
I know.
Legend.
It's just one of those things where we can. There's multiple rabbit holes we could dive down. So,
well, if you want a complete change of pace, and you want to almost
wait.
snap the necks of anyone viewing,
is it worthy of Monty Python? And now, time for something completely different.
And now for something entirely different. Yeah, this is definitely in that vein, because we could talk about the Chinese Communist Party meeting and the goings on with that.
Is it current?
It happened, what was it, last week? It was the one where the former chairman of the
where
party,
the guy got escorted out.
Yep. So, for those who don't know, the Chinese Communist Party had their annual party convention, I want to say like a week or two ago. And it played out much the way that these things normally do, where every vote was unanimous. But it had one major interesting occurrence during the convention, and that was when the former chairman of the party was escorted out mid-convention against his will.
And he looked confused
He looked worried. He tried to ask for help from several people. And the current person who is right beneath Xi when it comes to party power, the assistant chairman, effectively, looked like he was about ready to shit himself because he was hand selected and he was groomed by the previous party head. So when the previous party head was let out, that was a firm indication that he wasn't safe either. Because if the previous party head can be dragged out, then what's to stop him from being dragged out?
Yep.
And immediately you had a bunch of people that are part of the Chinese propaganda influencers that started immediately saying that, oh, he was let out because of health issues. No, he wasn't.
I mean, again,
It was not health issues.
Well, no, at this point, like I said earlier, it's getting to a point where we're seeing things going on. And how far can you throw that excuse beanie bag? Oh, yeah, it's probably health. Is it after everything else that's been going on? Yeah, oh, yeah, no, that's a health. Get the fuck out of here, dude. Like, no, it's not. It's this dude was let out. And he was shitting his pants as he was doing something.
Yeah, it was the old school communist action, the old days of Stalin, or worse, the old days of Mao, where you would have someone in a picture with the party, and then the next time that you see that same picture, there's a gap. And where there should have been a person, there isn't.
Yeah.
And it was just done to the previous head of the party. Which, holy shit, that is terrifying. But that does mean that China is probably going to end up committing, effectively, cultural suicide. And what I mean by cultural suicide is that it's going to continue shutting off. It's going to continue pulling back, and it's going to continue trying to overplay its hand, and people are just going to completely disregard it. At least if there's any sense anywhere else, it will be completely disregarded. And we're already seeing people start to disregard it because we have a bunch of people that were swindled into the Belt and Road initiative now coming out and saying, fuck them. We have a bunch of nations that had positive impressions of China now coming out, and they have massively negative impressions. A good example of this is, I want to say it was Italy, when the Olympics was happening in China, the big one a fair few years ago. They had like a 90-something% approval rating of China and of Xi. Now they are sub 20, and I think they're sub 10%.
Whoa.
Yeah, when you go from like 90-something% to sub 20 or sub 10,
that's a drop.
Holy shit, you have fallen.
Yeah. How quick was it? Was it or how sudden was the drop?
Oh, the drop was fairly sudden, which was also the thing that made it even more interesting because effectively the drop happened earlier this year or last year. Because it was kind of in that same venue for a good while. And then it just plummeted after China's response to the whole Eastern European debacle.
Oof. Yeah, that's something else, man.
It's absolutely ridiculous. But it's good news that places are finally having this wake up of there's a lot of shit that's going on, and people are finally waking up to, hey, China might not be doing good shit right now. They're waking up way fucking later than they should have, but waking up now is better than keeping their head in the ground.
I agree, but at the same end, I gotta say, sons the bitch. Like, holy shit. Nobody was saying anything, or at least they made mention, but they should have been up at arms when it was going even in the movie industry and saying, hey, yeah, we don't want black actors on the posters.
Yep.
It's like, okay, what in the fuck are you people doing?
Yep. There's a lot of shit that should have never happened when it came to how we were dealing with China. And also, the thing that still just pisses me off is people are meant to act like China doing the wolf warrior diplomacy is effective. Why? Why are people acting like this is effective? If you want to get rid of wolf warrior tactics, you have to kind of call it out, and you need to point out what it actually is. Because I'm not sure about you, Adam. If you're at a bar and you see someone who's constantly popping off when it comes to what they say, and they're insulting every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the place, versus the guy who's just sitting there having a beer, kind of has this, as long as you don't fuck with me, I don't have to worry about you sort of attitude. Which one of these guys do you think is more in control?
Probably the latter.
Yeah, I definitely have the, oh, he's in control sense from those two. China Wolf Warrior politics is the first, and people are trying to act like, oh, that's making it scary. No, no, no. In order to get rid of Wolf Warrior diplomacy, people should be going, why are you making China seem weak? We're trying to deal with you as if you're an equal. Why are you making China seem weak? I'm trying to deal with you. Stop this bluster. Stop this bullshit. Let's just fucking talk. Because it is the Wolf Warrior diplomacy is making China seem like a fucking chihuahua.
Yep. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And people just aren't pointing it out, and I wish someone would, because it is getting annoying. Them always doing this. Well, China number one. No, you aren't. Well, if you do this, then you're anti-Chinese. Well, I'm going to do it. Fuck you. This
There's a
constant capitulation, though. And you were saying?
Oh no, it's the capitulation is just it's getting out of hand.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that is infuriating. Is it's still that idea of when you don't learn from the past, you're going to create the same situation that you were in before. Those who don't learn from the past are doomed to repeat it, is the way that it's normally said.
Yeah.
There's also the other version, which is history doesn't repeat itself, but it certainly has a rhyme. And
Yep.
we're kind of in that place where people are treating communist China in very much a similar way that they were treating the Austrian man with a funny mustache. Let's phrase it that way, because I'm not sure how many things can be said without them deciding that this can't be said.
Yep.
Sounds like you have a phone call. Oh, so it's just infuriating because we're doing the same shit. We're doing appeasement. And yes, fuck China. And by that, I mean red China, not actual China. Because one of the things that we should have never done, but we did for bullshit reasons, was when it came down to the Security Council chair for the UN, that chair was an agreement with the Nationalist Party, not the Communist Party. And for some fucking reason, afterwards, we gave it to the Communist Party. No, fuck that. It was the Nationalist Party that agreement was made with. The Communist Party can petition for a chair like anyone else. The Nationalist Party should be getting their rightful chair. And the Nationalist Party is, of course, the party that then went on to found modern Taiwan. And was actually the one that fought the Sino-Japanese War, which that is an absolute shit show, the history that most people know on it. Yeah, appeasement doesn't work. It's something that we've learned time and time and time fucking again throughout history. Appeasement doesn't work. There's a reason why there's the phrase, pay the Dane Geld, never be rid of the Dane. And that's all this is. It's paying the Dane Geld. And then we're surprised when, well, the Dane asks for more money. Yeah, no shit. You paid them money. When you just keep on giving in, people ask for more. This is human nature. And it's infuriating because it should be something that people are able to realize this pattern. And people should know this pattern just because it's used in fucking everything. If you're overly indulgent of children, the child becomes spoiled rotten and demands constantly more. If you are overly indulgent with a group of protesters, then the protesters will constantly demand more. If you're overly indulgent with a political entity, then the political entity will always demand more. This is a constant thing in fucking every venue. There is no exception to this, as far as I can tell. There's no, well, it's true in these instances, but it's not in this. No. If you're overly indulgent, people demand more. And what's worse is when you finally do go, no more, that's when they really flip their shit, because they've been trained that they want more, they ask for more, they get more. So when you finally deny them, they're now pissed off because, well, you're denying me what's rightfully mine. No, it's not rightfully yours. It's never been rightfully yours. And it is just absolutely fucking infuriating that people refuse to acknowledge this. And the thing is that it's not just with children, it's not just with political parties, it's not just with any of the examples I've already named. But This is the whole reason why Karens became a thing. People caved to Karen bitching and moaning, so the Karen learned that they could bitch and moan and get what they want, so Karen started bitching and moaning ever more. And it's just learn this shit. Learn how people work. Learn how you can interact with people. Learn when you should grant some leeway and learn when you shouldn't. The fact that we just keep on ignoring it, going, well, this would never happen again. Bad news. If it's happened once, it's probably able to happen again. And when you're dealing with, well, they built a dangerous level of ire against each other. Okay. How? How did that process go on? Is there anything that's currently happening of that sort? If yes, then maybe we should interrupt it. This is something that, yeah, basic politics and diplomacy. Sorry, exactly. It's shit that should be common knowledge, but it seems like it is some esoteric bit of arcane information to the people that should be the ones who are most relied upon to know it. They seem to always be confused by, wait, why is it that when we do this thing that we've always known has this outcome, that, what the hell is happening here? It should be fucking obvious what's happening. And it again goes, would rather spite their face to get back at their detractors. Yeah, that's what a portion of it is. Also, I think a large part of it is that the people that get these positions in politics aren't the best people. They aren't the most knowledgeable people. And for some fucking reason, we don't have the system in place that we should, where if you're wrong once, everyone's wrong once. That's not a problem. If you're wrong twice in a row, you should now be considered as having your head upon the block. If you're wrong 3 times in a row, the blade should drop. You should never have a position in that department ever again. And the important part is in a row, because it doesn't matter if someone's been wrong 3 times in the past 2 decades and they're right every other time. It's just those 3 times they're wrong. That doesn't matter. If you're consistently wrong, though, you shouldn't have your position. This is the case when it comes to Yellen. Yellen hasn't had a single accurate prediction of the economy, to my knowledge, in her entire fucking time as the chairman of the Fed, which is being ruined now because one side would rather spite their face to get back at their... Oh yeah, I already read that. But yeah, it's something that just constantly pisses me off, because you have this with Yellen. You have this with a bunch of other people. You have this with what's the name of the Millie. You have this with Millie, where Millie was saying it's ridiculous to think that this would happen in Afghanistan. And then everything that he said was ridiculous. And he listed off a bunch of things. Everything that he said was ridiculous happened. And then he came out and he said, it'd be ridiculous to think that this would happen. And then that happened. And it would be ridiculous. And then it happened. Man shouldn't have a position anymore. He's wrong every time he opens his fucking mouth. Can him. Shit can him yesterday.
Sorry, dude.
Not a problem.
My apologies.
I'm again ranting about my people need to implement a if you're wrong 3 times in a row, you should be shit canned policy.
Yeah, I think that's a decent policy.
Yeah. Especially if you're
What
wrong
brought
about
about
3 massive things in a row, you should be shit canned.
this this topic?
It was me talking about the diplomacy and how people keep on refusing to acknowledge that basic human nature has remained the same. And when you just keep on yielding to people's demands, they just demand more, not less. When you keep on allowing people to bitch and moan for a reward that just encourages further bitching and moaning. And this happens in everything. It happens in politics. It happens in diplomacy. It happens in dealing with children. It happens in dealing with customers. Karens were designed by the immediately cave to an angry customer mentality that certain businesses cultivated. If they didn't capitulate to people getting loud and getting obnoxious, then people wouldn't have developed the idea that they can just get loud and obnoxious to get
Hold
what they
on.
want.
I'm just seeing a sea of Sora Luna in the chat.
Yep.
Wait, which is being now because one's. See, I don't know about.
Yeah, and throw money at the problem is never the right answer, because you first need to look at one thing right before you're able to even consider throwing money at an issue, and that is the money that is currently going towards this problem actually being spent on this problem? Because if the answer is no, they don't get 1 fucking cent more. And in fact, what you should probably start doing, if the answer is no, they aren't spending the money that they're getting on the problem that they're supposed to be spending money, you should be slowly starting to decrease the amount of money that they get until it either collapses or they realize what the fuck they're doing. Because this is the problem that every time I hear someone say, well, the problem with education is that we don't give enough funding to education. Okay, why is it that the 10 most funded school systems in the United States, I think it's 9 of them appear in the in the bottom 10% of school systems in the country? A perfect example of this is Washington, D.C. spends more per student than damn near any other area of the country. Washington, D.C. has one of the worst school systems in the entire country. If more money fixed the problem, then you would expect that the highest cost per student would be the best education. That isn't the case. So what you have to look at is okay, what is actually the case? And what is actually the case is that when you spend money efficiently in education, then yes, the people that have more money to spend and they spend it efficiently tend to get better results than those who have less money and spend it inefficiently, and also than those who have more money and spend it inefficiently. When you look at most school systems, they're overwhelmingly bloated by administrators. There isn't a shit ton of teachers. It's when you look at a school system, a good chunk of school systems are like 3-to-1 administrators to teachers.
Yeah, that's true. And what are they? I mean, what are their roles in terms of working in the schools? I mean, I understand the teachers; they're actually working with the students, but
Oh, what's the roles of the vast majority of the administrators? Is that what you're
yeah.
asking? To soak up the money that they get.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, whereas the amount of money given towards education increases, in the vast majority of places, the number of administrators increases. It's kind of like the thing that I've bitched and moaned about when it comes to corrections before. When I was a correctional officer, the prison that I worked at, we had a rather good ratio of employees to prisoners because it was like 3-to-1 prisoners to employees. That sounds really nice. That sounds rather safe, right? If you have only 3 offenders for every employee, that's something that you can manage fairly easy because all you have to do is you have to make sure that you get localized numerical advantage. Pretty cool, pretty nice to do. Do you know the big problem with that, though?
What is that?
When you remove the janitorial staff, when you remove the administrative staff, and when you remove the education staff, the cell hall that had the fewest number of prisoners and the greatest number of staff to the number of prisoners that they had, that was an actual full cell hall and not just our rehab program wing, the staff was outnumbered about 50-to-1.
Oh,
The actual correctional staff
that's
was
a
outnumbered
ratio.
50-to-1.
Yeah, shit.
Yeah. That's the problem. The administrators, the janitors, the school teachers, all that bloated up the staff numbers. So it sounded like it was reasonably staffed. When you actually figured out the reality of it, you realized it wasn't. Do you know one of the main reasons why once you subtracted the administrators, the staffing rate fell? I think I've talked about this before. What's an HR department's purpose, Adam?
Resourcing humans.
HR department normally is in charge of making sure that people don't start petty bits of bullshit and making sure that all the staff files and all that are in proper order, right? That's what the actual intention of HR was in the first place.
Are they in charge of making sure nobody gets a case of the Mondays?
They aren't, and nor do I think that they ever should be. But yeah, the premise behind it is that they were meant to be there in order to keep people from fighting each other for bullshit reasons, to keep the documents, and to make sure that hiring is done appropriately. That was the original intention of HR. Then at the prison, we also had a command staff. The command staff was meant to make sure that people followed proper policy. So both HR and command staff kind of work in making sure that people do what they're supposed to be doing roles. So you already have some redundancy, but that's an acceptable amount of redundancy. So there was a problem though, because due to understaffing and due to lowered requirements, lowered standards for employing correction officers, you got shittier results. So the state decided that there were some people that broke policy or weren't professional. So in order to handle the people breaking policy and in order to review the policy, they decided that they would make another HR department, which was the Office of Policy. They realized that there was still a problem. People weren't always the most professional, so they made an office that was the Office of Professionalism. So now you have the HR department, the Office of Policy, the Office of Professionalism, and the command staff. You have 4 entities supervising effectively the same thing. But then they decided that there was still a problem. So they came up with a brilliant idea that was sure to fix everything. They made the Office of Policy and Professionalism. So now you had the Office of Policy and Professionalism, the Office of Policy, the Office of Professionalism, you had the HR department, and you had the command staff. So now you have 5 entities observing the same thing. But they realized that there was still a problem. So they decided to make a brand new office because this would surely fix the problem that they were having. So they made the Office of Professionalism in the Workplace. So now you had the Office of Professionalism in the Workplace, the Office of Policy and Professionalism, the Office of Professionalism, the Office of Policy, the HR department, and the command staff. But there's still a problem. So they decided that they would make a new office that would surely fix this problem. So they made the Office of Policy in the Workplace. Because where the fuck else would policy be other than in the workplace, you absolute gormless fucks? But then we had the Office of Policy in the Workplace, the Office of Professionalism in the Workplace, the Office of Policy and Professionalism, the Office of Policy, the Office of Professionalism, the HR department, and the command staff. But there was still a problem, even though there were 7 entities now, all observing the same fucking thing. So they decided that they would do something daring. They would do something new. They would do something that has never been tried before, but would be sure to fix the issue. And they made the Office of Policy and Professionalism in the Workplace. So now you have the Office of Policy and Professionalism in the Workplace, the Office of Policy in the Workplace, the Office of Professionalism in the Workplace, the Office of Professionalism, the Office of Policy, the Office, or the HR department, and the... Oh, I missed one because it was Policy and Professionalism in the Workplace, Policy in the Workplace, Professionalism in the Workplace. Then it was Office of Policy and Professionalism, the Office of Professionalism, the Office of Policy, the HR department, and then command staff. There we go. That's the 8. And they still had a problem. So do you know what they did, Adam?
What did they do?
I bet you can't guess after their dazzling display of knowing how to fix a problem. I bet no one can guess what their solution was. Because if your guess is anything other than they decided that they needed to make a new department.
Did they make a new department?
They made a 9th fucking department.
Oh, shit.
So now every prison
there seems to be a pattern here.
Every prison in the state had 9 fucking HR departments. Nine. And I'm not saying no in German. I'm saying the number 9.
How did it get that far?
Because the problem is that the state, you have a bunch of politicians, and politicians, not being statesmen, just being politicians, it is more important to be seen to do something than to actually do something. So, since it is more important to be seen to do something than actually do something, it is really flashy to declare that you made a new department. Because you make a department, you get a few more jobs, and then you're able to point to it and go, see, I did something. I took an action in order to fix this problem that you guys were pointing to. So next time when you're worried about this, think of someone who actually did something to fix the problem and put my name as your vote. Vote for me. I have this office that was my creation in place. So you know that you're in good hands because I actually get things done. They care a lot about being seen to do things. They don't give a good goddamn about actually doing things. So what happened is that they would just keep on adding on departments, and they would never strip away a department because that's someone else's legacy.
Yeah.
So then it would reach the time when contract negotiation would go up. And despite the entire time that I was working at the prison, us having chronic understaffing, a absolutely ridiculous rate of burnout, and also due to the low standards, we had the entire time that I was working there, at least one female officer was walked out of the door and locked out every month. And by being walked out and locked out, what I mean by that is they were caught sucking, fucking, or smuggling. Or, rather, more accurately, sucking, fucking, and or smuggling.
Damn. She might have been a hat trick.
Yep. So, the way that you fix this is you have to raise standards. But if you just raise standards and you don't have sufficient compensation, no one's going to be interested in the job. So, you need to increase the compensation. That decreases burnout. That increases the number of people interested in working the job, which solves the issue of chronic understaffing. And it allows you to increase your standards, making it so that you now had better correction officers. So when we went to the contract negotiation, the state, after looking at the numbers, that said for every one person that we had coming to work for the prison, we had somewhere between 1.5 and 2 people leave employment at the prison. They looked at those stats and they said, there's no retention issue. And not only did they say
retention issue,
they said that there was no retention issue after seeing the stats that said for every one person added to the correction officer staffing, there was 1.5 to 2 people leaving. They said that there was no retention issue. Personally, I think that if for every one person that you get in, 1.5 to 2 people leave, that's a massive fucking retention issue.
Yeah, sounds like it.
But they said that there was no retention issue. And then also with the suggestion of increasing pay to the staff that is already getting burnt out, the state came back with the lovely offer of, well, you see, working a lot of additional overtime is a fantastic opportunity to boost your earnings potential. So the state, which had produced 9 fucking HR departments that they staffed and paid, decided that, hold on one moment, that was a tightening of my throat as I nearly coughed, decided that it would cost too much to increase the pay of correction officers in order to actually rectify the problems. Because paying correction officers more isn't sexy. It isn't something that you can point to as a legacy that I was the person who increased the payment of correction officers. That's never sexy. So they're loath to do it. They will make a new department at the drop of a hat, but increasing pay? No, fuck that. That doesn't look good. It makes us look pro-law enforcement. Makes us look pro-prisons. So,
yeah,
that is what pisses me off. Mighty Balzac, the thing is that when it comes to that description, that is effectively the entire fucking country. So I don't even need to name the state that I work in. Because it is as true in the state that I work in as it is in all the surrounding states, as it is in pretty much every other state in the country. Prisons throughout the United States are chronically understaffed. And not just chronically, they're chronically and critically understaffed.
Oof.
Yep. So it is infuriating every time that I hear people just say, well, we need to increase the funding for something. Where the fuck is that money going? Let's figure that out first. Is it being spent appropriately? Is the funding that's currently going there being spent appropriately? If they aren't spending the current funding, why the fuck would we think that they are going to spend this additional funding appropriately? This is the same thing that I think when it comes to charities, because there are some really good charities where it's 80 to 90 something percent. Some of them, it's even more than 90 something percent of the money that they get in actually goes to what their charity is supposed to give money to. And then there's the vast majority of charities where it is, if you're lucky, 1 to 2% actually goes to what the charity is supposed to be giving money to.
Yeah, a lot of charities don't donate 100% of what they're doing. Like,
See, I'm
come on
not
now.
even asking for 100%. 100% would be amazing. I'm not
Well,
asking
that'd
for
be
100% because you need to pay your workers for the charity.
yeah, it's unrealistic. You know,
Yep.
they need overhead. But at
But
one point, does overhead become a lucrative business that people could go into, and dupe other people to just toss in money? I mean, I don't know. Maybe a mansion with a airport hangar, but
yeah, it pisses me off because it is a constant thing. Like I said, charities that are really good will be in that like 80 to 90 plus percent range. And those are fucking amazing. If it's a charity like that, I have absolutely no problem going, sure, give money to them. Then you have other charities. Like I said, the vast majority of charities give an obscenely low percent to what their actual pledge is. And one of the ones that I always think of off the top of my head as a example of this is the one charity, Bono's charity.
what is
Because
that?
Bono from U2.
No, yeah, I just what is his charity? What does he toss it to?
Oh, the one charity. Let me pull it up and I can read its copy. So the copy of the one charity, let's see, about one. One is a global movement campaigning to end extreme poverty and preventable disease by 2030 so that everyone, everywhere can lead a life of dignity and opportunity. We believe the fight against poverty isn't about charity, but about justice and equality. Whether lobbying political leaders in world capitals or running cutting edge grassroots campaigns, one pressures governments to do more to fight extreme poverty and preventable disease, particularly in Africa, and empowers citizens to hold their governments to account. One's supporters are crucial to this work. They come from every walk of life and from across the political spectrum. They're artists and activists, faith and business leaders, students and scientists. They take action day in and day out, organizing, mobilizing, educating, and advocating so that people will have the chance not just to survive, but to thrive. One teams in Abuja, Berlin, Brussels, Dakar, Johannesburg, London, New York, Ottawa, Paris, and Washington, D.C. educate and lobby governments to shape policy solutions that save and improve millions of lives, and which every year are under threat from cuts and other priorities. Co-founded by Bono and other activists, one is strictly nonpartisan. One is not a grant-making organization and does not solicit funding from the public or receive government funds. One is funded almost entirely by foundations, individual philanthropists, and corporate partners. So, do you know how much of the funding that one gets actually goes to what it's supposed to?
I don't know. Probably not a lot though.
The most recent estimate that I saw of how much actually goes to what they claim it goes to is somewhere between 0.5 and 1.5%.
Shit.
So 99.5% up to let's do it the other way. 98.5% up to 99.5% just gets consumed by the charity. That is not a actual charity to my mind. That is probably money laundering to my mind. It is infuriating. And that's how a lot of charities are when you actually look into them. Most charities are in that like 1% to 2% range, it seems. There's certain ones that do amazing, and they're in that 80 to 90+%. And those, like I said, those give as much as you want. If you're giving to one of the ones that gives the 1 to 2% or sub 1%, don't give them your money. Your money's better off with you. If you want to give that money charitably, find one of the ones that is actually giving money to what they say that they're going to give money to.
Yeah, where the money actually goes to where it's supposed to go.
Yep. And like I said, there's a lot of charities that the money does actually go where it's supposed to. They aren't the most common sort, but there's a lot of them still. It's just that there's a fuck ton that they end up just ripping people off.
Yeah. You just got to be careful with it, folks.
Yep. So, I recommend looking into your charities that you want to give to. Make sure that they are entirely above board. Find out how much they give. If they try to obscure how much they actually give to what they're giving to, then find a different charity would be my advice. Because the ones, when you go to the one, it makes no mention of how much goes to what it's actually saying that it goes to. Whereas when you look up certain charities, you can find them say very clearly 75% of all the money that we get goes to where we say it's going to go.
Yeah.
Which means that 25% is overhead. 25% overhead, that's not terrible. You see some that it's 90%. Those are really damn good. Those are mean, streamlined charities. Those are good options. It's just infuriating how many times that I'll see charities that they give 1 or 2%, and I'm going, what the fuck is the point of you other than personal enrichment?
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Mm-hmm. And that's where BLM was. The moment that BLM started collecting an obscene amount of money, I kind of took a peek at where that money was going, and I realized that it was completely opaque. And you couldn't really figure out where that money was going off the face of it. So that is immediately something that you should be going, oh, okay, yeah, I'm not going to give to them. Because even if you were so inclined, even if you thought that it was important, find a charity that tells you how much they're giving.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I wasn't surprised when it came out that, oh yeah, turns out they weren't giving a goddamn thing to anyone that they said that they were giving it to. The families of people that they said were slain by police officers that they said needed all the support and that they were going to support. Turns out those families never got 1 red cent.
Nope.
They campaigned off of those people and they never got anything. It was bullshit on the face of it, but it was made even worse when you look into how the funding was going.
Well, I mean, right off the start, you could kind of assume that it was going to be a Ponzi scheme type of thing.
Absolutely. Especially since there were a bunch of those donation things that when you actually looked into where the money was going, it was going into an Act Blue slush fund.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, Act Blue is a Democrat Party financing group. The money was just going into a slush fund to help get Democrats elected. It wasn't going where it said it was going. It was going into that slush fund. And people were unaware about it. And that type of shit should be illegal to my mind. I'm perfectly fine if people want to give money to something that is not a good idea by my reckoning. It doesn't matter if it's a good idea by my reckoning, but people should know up front where is the money that they're giving actually going.
Yeah, in the very least. I mean, they should know where it's going.
That's the bare minimum, that you should know where it's going, and you should know how much of it is going where. And if you decide that, yep, I still want to give to this, absolutely, give to it then. But if there's no information, then you have no way of knowing if you actually agree with what the money is going to.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of just disingenuous, you know?
Yeah.
If you're going to ask for money to help out in one cause and then just take that money and use it for something else, I mean, that's bad.
Yep. And it should be, like I said, an illegal business practice.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, definitely. Bait and switch, right? I guess.
Yep.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's fucked that it was happening constantly and that there was very little being said about it, because I'm going, no, this is, people need to know what they're actually giving to.
Well, I mean, especially if it's something that you would want. Okay, say you're donating money to a specific cause. It's kind of a letdown when you know, all of a sudden find out that the money that you donated is not going to that cause.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just a joke.
And it's just a half step from where it currently is to people putting up charities, with air quotes around charities, that actually just funnel into the exact opposite.
Would these be considered money laundering schemes?
A fair chunk of them probably should be.
Oh shit. Eee.
Because there's a lot of shit that is really dodgy about this, and some of them do get caught up for money laundering. Have a good one, Sor. Some of them do get caught up in money laundering. Like, that's what's currently happening with BLM.
Oh.
BLM is currently in the process of getting investigated for money laundering.
Well, that was just, yeah. And they didn't really have any excuses as to why they did what they did, or they purchased what they did,
Yeah.
outside of fundraising and hosting parties and shit. But
And even then, that's not a valid reason. Yeah, it was something that was absolutely infuriating. It's coming out, thankfully. It's coming out way too late, to my opinion. But at least it's coming out.
oh shit, got some bots in the chat.
Yep.
Thanks, Johnny.
Yep. Thanks for that, Johnny.
I'm surprised we get bots.
We get them every so often. And it is about that time. Do we have any topics that we want to go into right before we end, or shall we just start wrapping up now?
Well, has how much closer are we to World War III?
The various political entities currently don't seem so inclined to calm things down, and they keep on trying to push for ever more drastic responses. And it still just pisses me off endlessly that people are so fucking retarded about this that they don't realize that NATO was not designed to be anti-Russian. NATO was designed to be anti-communist. Russia is not currently communist.
Nope.
NATO should have, after the fall of the USSR and the creation of modern Russia, gone to Russia and said, hey, you're not communist anymore, right? How do you feel about joining a group that is entirely about fuck the communists?
I think at this point, if you can't see this scenario, you're either willfully ignorant or you're hoorah for a certain side. So that's my take. Or you're just really, out of the loop. And
Yeah, you're just out of touch. And the
Yeah.
thing that pisses me off about it is that if we had taken that action at any point in the past about 30 years, we would have avoided this.
Yeah.
Because with Russia, the entire thing is that there's a group that is claiming to be a hostile force against its interests that was looking to expand to within artillery range of its capital. It did not want this to happen. So it took a drastic action. That is not saying that it's right, that's saying that there's a logic to it. There's a massive distinction between saying it's right and saying that there's a logic. But if you want to be able to deal with people, if you want to be able to come to a peaceable agreement, what you have to do is you have to understand where the other side is coming from. And after understanding where the other side's coming from, you have to then think, okay, so is there a way that we can come to an agreement that is passable by both of our stances? And having Russia join NATO because it's no longer communist, and NATO was never meant to be anti-Russian, but anti-communist, makes it very straightforward and easy, because then NATO expanding is not a entity that is claiming to be hostile to Russia. expanding to within artillery range of the Russian border. It's Russia getting an expansion of its own side as well. And it has increased power to a certain extent, especially if you're able to sell it right. If you're able to sell it as, well, in order for NATO to function at its optimal level, then we kind of need balancing powers on opposite sides of the earth. So if Russia can build up and become the great bear of the East, and the US, the great eagle of the West, then that would be a stronger NATO. If you could sell that and you could get that agreed to by the Russian people, you end up with everyone being much happier. But no, we didn't decide that. We decided that we would forget what NATO was about. So NATO allies would start getting in bed with other communist regimes rather than being anti-communist, as it was supposed to, and would instead start antagonizing a non-communist regime, because fuck the non-communist regime. That pisses me off.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It's infuriating. But yeah, shall we go for parting words, or do you have anything else that you want to add into that?
Add into that. No, I don't think I do have anything to add. But in terms of parting words, I guess as I always say on these type of nights, I want to thank you for inviting me on to chat with you.
Always fun having you.
And I enjoyed the chat with Chet, although it seems to have been a lot of Sora Luna. But I love Sora Luna. She's a good lady.
Yep, I'm very active in chat tonight, which was appreciated.
Yeah. But chat and future viewers and viewers as a whole, I love you all and God bless.
Sounds good. And I'll leave off with my standard of, if you're passionate about something, make sure that you devour it. Don't let it devour you. And with that, have a good night all. The zoo is closed.
Night.